Amazing, amazing. Kobe, welcome back. We missed you, Yaakov, and we're happy to see you here. It's not the same without you.
Happy to be back.
Bezrat Hashem. Any questions saved up in your arsenal before we begin?
I am curious why there's 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. It's beautiful. We get to say Musaf and Halal twice.
It depends. Some months it comes out to be 1 day. Some months it comes out. By the way, I have an answer to your question. I forgot. Remember we were learning about the blessings, and then you asked me if Mizonot is supposed to come before Hagefen. Why do we make Kiddush before we do the bread?
Okay.
Remember the question?
Yeah.
I said I have to look into it.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer is that Kiddush is a mitzvah, that we have a specific mitzvah, that we have to be mekadesh al hayayin, lasot Kiddush. That we have to sanctify Shabbat. And the way that we sanctify Shabbat is through wine, but that really precedes needing to sanctify Shabbat. It's nothing to do with a blessing. What we then go ahead and we sanctify Shabbat on wine. Mm-hmm. So that goes before the normal order. But it's because there's an individual sanctification which needs to be done, which has nothing to do with the order of blessings.
Got it.
You understand?
Yes.
Regarding your question now, so I think it works out according to the calendar. Why is it that sometimes it comes out to be 2 days and sometimes 1 day?
Right.
I'm not sure. It's almost like why some days are in English months is there 31 days in a month and some days there's 30. Meaning there's the cycle of the month, and Rosh Chodesh sometimes depends. But I'm sure there's probably something that has to do with the actual cycle. Why sometimes it comes out to be that there's more or less days in each month. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right. So, like for example, Nisan has. Oh, that's strange. I guess Nisan has 29 days.
Right.
But Adar. No, sorry, that's Adar. But Shvat has 30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So to continue where we left off over here in the Mishnah. Perkei Avot, Mishnah, Perek Daled, Mishnah Tet. Rabbi Yonatan Omer, Kol HaMekayem et HaTorah Me'oni. Anybody that keeps the Torah, no, this we learned last week. I'll just go over it. I'll run through the Mishnah because you weren't here. Kol HaMekayem et HaTorah Me'oni. Anybody that keeps the Torah from a place of poverty, Sofo L'Kayma Me'osher. Eventually he's going to be able to keep the Torah from a place of wealth. Kol HaMevatel et HaTorah Me'osher. And anybody who has so much wealth that he's so busy only with his financial responsibilities, and he doesn't make time to learn God's Torah, Sofo Levatlo Me'oni. He's going to end up needing to be distracted from learning Torah because he's going to be so busy with poverty. Mm-hmm. So meaning, in any scenario that you're in, if you're poor and you toil in the Torah, you're eventually going to be rich, so you'll be able to have time to learn Torah. And if you're rich and you don't toil in Torah, you're going to end up being poor again, and you're going to be distracted. So pretty much in all scenarios, study Torah. That was the last Mishnah that we learned. Mm-hmm. Today's Mishnah, Perek Dalet, Mishnah Yud. Rabbi Meir Omer, Haveh mema'et be'esek. A person should make his business secondary to his life. It should be mema'et, meaning he should minimize in his working. V'asok b'Torah. And his main focus and his main commitment should be to the Torah itself, to learning Torah. Because when a person is busy with work and is constantly making his physical and his financial responsibilities the main focus of his life, that's naturally gonna make him forget his learning, and it's gonna be difficult for him to maintain his learning because he's gonna be so busy with this running after worldly desires and different business goals. Mm-hmm. So the Mishnah is telling us, first of all, be mema'et ba'esek. Minimize what you can in your business. And when you're able to, you have to be osek b'Torah. That doesn't mean obviously the hours where you need to work, but try to set up your schedule in a way where first you have to know what's the first priority, what's the second priority. Sorry, a little bit. Be humble in front of every single person, says the Mishnah. Even if somebody's smaller than you. You could still learn from him Torah. There's still something he could teach you. And somebody who has an attribute of being shfal ruach, being somebody who's humble, he won't need extra things in his life. He'll be able to be happy with the minimum. What do they call it in English? Not minimum. It's
minimalism.
Minimalism. Thank you. He'll be able to be a minimalist, which eventually will make him less busy in the rat race, of running after every single extra temptation or any extra worldly pleasure he can get in this world. And he'll be able to toil more in the Torah, because eventually, the less a person has to constantly run after all these different, the less a person has to run after worldly pleasures and worldly matters, the more he's going to be able to toil in the Torah. That's how it works. If you're so busy working, and now you're not going to learn Torah, יש לך בטלים הרבה. בטלים. Betelim means you're going to have many distractions, bad ones that will distract you, God forbid. Kenegdecha. Hashem will bring on you through these distractions unfortunate occurrences because you bitalta Torah. Bitalta is like when you need to do something. When somebody is, let's say, has a job, yoshev batel, means he's sitting and he's not doing what he needs to be doing. So since we explained, the person needs to make the first priority needs to be learning Torah, and he needs to be ma'et ba'esek, to minimalize his work and make Torah his main focus and his main goal. If he goes ahead and he avoids learning Torah when he's supposed to, then he's going to now receive other distraction from the creator of the world, which is going to take him away from whatever he needs to be doing, meaning not only from learning, but also from business. He's going to have heavenly distractions because he's distracting himself from what's the ultimate purpose, which is learning the Torah. Shene'emar, the pasuk in Tehillim says, Ach yesh Elokim shoftim ba'aretz, meaning God pays you in this world, not only in the next world. If you go ahead and you make your capital focus, learning Torah, not learning Torah, then you're going to have other distractions and other things in your life. Ve'im amalta b'Torah, and if you chose to toil in Torah and you lowered your interaction with working, you made Torah your first priority, you gave up from other important things and you made Torah the most important thing, you put it front and foremost, yesh lecha sachar הרבה ליתן לך. There's going to be a lot of reward coming towards you. Meaning God is going to send you great reward. And this comes directly from God. And he's going to get more and more and more rewards.
In this world.
Yeah, so the point is that a person shouldn't be afraid that if he doesn't work, then he's not going to have any source of reward, or he's not going to have what he needs. Because quite the contrary, when a person is not busy with his money as much and he's focused on his priorities, which is learning Torah and filling himself with the spiritual quota which he needs to fill every single day, then he's going to have everything that he needs from God himself for him and his family. He'll give you a path and he'll sustain you with everything that you need. And whatever little business that you're going to have to do is going to have blessing. A very good example of this is anybody who's in sales. You see somebody can make 100 cold calls. and every single one will fail. You could see another person who could make 5 calls, and one of them is going to close him a few $100,000 deal. This other guy just did literally 90% more toil in his work, and the fruits are so much more. A person could study a specific kind of medicine, and he could go into a certain forte in medicine, and for whatever reason in the city where he lives, in the place where he specifically wants to specialize in what he studied for, they just don't need anybody in that position. Meaning there's an overflow of anesthesiologists, for example. Mm-hmm. And he went and he studied for an extensive period of time. So he's gonna have to go right now to move to a faraway place that he didn't want to move. What happens if he doesn't want to? He's not gonna have a job. Another person will just happen to go into a forte in a business, and that's going to be very much needed. He'll open up a pizza shop or a supermarket, and he'll become extremely well off because there's no other service like that in the community or whatever. The extent of success in business is not necessarily having to do with how much effort you put in. Mm-hmm. Although obviously people that are successful work hard. We're not saying a person shouldn't work hard. We're not saying a person shouldn't have a work ethic. We need to be very driven and focused. We have to do everything we do in our lives right. Whatever it is, whether we're learning Torah or we're doing mitzvot, everything has to be done right. Whether we're working, we have to do it right. When we have responsibilities at work, we have to stick to our responsibilities. We have to keep to our commitments. Everything has to be within line of what we're trying to get to. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we have to realize that if we make our priorities right, then we can do something small and have a lot of success. Mm-hmm. So the Mishnah is telling us, if, God forbid, somebody distracted himself from learning Torah, he's going to have a lot of distractions in everything he does in life. Mm-hmm. He's going to be sent in this world, distractions which are not going to let him achieve his goals. But if you toiled in the Torah, it doesn't say Mlamadet Torah, it says Imamalta b'Torah. A melut is somebody who toils, he works hard. It's because it's not easy. I think it's easy to show up every morning at Shari Yichud. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. There's always things going on, and every day is different, and sometimes Sunday's hard. It's after a long Shabbat, or people are away for the weekend, and people are tired, they have a cold, whatever it is.
Maybe you have a visa issue.
Yeah, visa issues, whatever it is. But Ima Malta b'Torah, if you made the Torah the first priority in your life, yesh lecha sachar הרבה ליתן לך. You're going to have tremendous reward to be given to you. So you stick with the Torah, and God will stick with you. You make Torah your first priority, God will make you his first priority by sending you blessing and success at everything you do for you and your family, Be'ezrat Hashem. Sababa? Okay.
Well, what you're also talking about is very reminiscent of Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. 20% of the work you do,
and 80%?
It is accounts for 80% of the actual outcome, while 80% of the work that you do is really not,
That's what Eliyahu taught you, that rule of thumb?
No, I just know it from
So why'd you say the Parero?
Oh, Pareto's law.
Oh, Pareto. I thought you said Parero.
No,
you're talking about Eliyahu. You should be blessed.
It's something called Pareto's principle.
We're blessing him.
Yes, I know. I hope his trip is successful so
Be'ezrat
far
Hashem.
and continues to be.
We're going to learn over here a little bit about learning beretzifut. Beretzifut in English is when somebody learns Torah without being distracted, meaning Retzifut is right now, for example, if I take out this book and I just read 10 pages without distracting myself for an extensive period of time. I'm not sure what the word would be in English. Retzifut. When you...
Focus.
Yeah, focus. Full focus, without distraction. Learning without distraction. So the Yanuka says, Yeshna ma'ala gdola lilmod 5 sha'ot beretzef. Yanuka says there's a great ma'ala when one could learn 5 hours straight. Melimud 5 sha'ot mefuzarot. If one could learn 5 hours straight, as opposed to 5 hours broken up, intermediate intervals, So one that learns straight has a higher level. שהרי כתב המאירי בפירושו, Meiri says in his sefer, in his explanation on Mishlei, שהלימוד ברציפות מכפיל עצמו. When one learns without distractions, when he learns שכל שעה נוספת כפולה במעלתה מחברתה, that every hour that you add on straight, that hour is being doubled. It's almost like in the end of a campaign, when they say every dollar that you give is matched. So if you're learning directly, straight, without distractions, that's getting doubled. וגם המגיד משרים, הזיר למהר"ן השולחן ערוך, Rabbi Yosef Karo, who is buried in Tzfat, he learned with a Magid. When he learned with this Magid, who came to learn with him from heaven, so he warned him, שילמד ברציפות ולא בהפסקות. He told him to learn straight and not to take intermediate intervals. וכתב הרמח"ל, and Rav Moshe Chaim Latzato writes in his letters, שהלימוד ברציפות, one that learns straight without distractions, מסוגל לבטל גזרות קשות מהעולם. One could get rid of evil, difficult decrees which exist in the world. If somebody learns without being distracted, and the Chazon Ish, Rav Karelitz explains, שהוא משל האדם המניח קטרה על האש. Somebody wants to make a chalent for Shabbat. So he takes a pot and he puts it on the fire. Somebody that leaves it on for an hour straight, the pot will cook nicely. If he puts it on for a few minutes onto the stove, and then he takes it off. Then he puts it back on. And then he takes off the pot again. Even if he does that the whole day, it's not going to cook. Because when somebody has, when it's on for an extended period of time on the flame, that's what causes it to cook. So too, when one wants to influence his neshama through learning Torah, if he wants to have the true influence, the more time that he can learn without distracting himself, to learn straight without being distracted. So I'm not sure why the Yenuka spoke over here, why he chose specifically 5 hours, because that doesn't seem to be practically applicable for any of us. But I think what we could do is just apply this wherever we're at, in the sense that we can make a contest with ourselves. Let's say that we're going to learn for 15 minutes without any distractions, without looking at our phones. And then they could turn into a half an hour, and then they could turn into an hour, and then eventually we can come to a place where we can learn an hour and a half, whatever it is, without distracting ourselves. If anybody, let's say, has a huge exam, so people will put their phone on Do Not Disturb, lock themselves in a room, they tell their spouse or their parents they can't be disturbed. It's understandable that when one wants to attain knowledge and really know his knowledge, he knows he cannot be distracted. So if we want to learn Torah, which is, we want to receive the ultimate light, and we want to light up our souls from the Torah, we have to realize that the more that we can learn the Torah with focus and without being distracted, the more that we can come to a place of true, proper, and we can get the biggest toilet, we can get the biggest, the best outcome from learning the Torah when it's straight without distractions. And the more Torah that we learn, the more time that we spend, it's actually double. It doubles the Torah in the strength, in the potency of the Torah, when we learn the Torah straight without distractions. Hashem is a kill time that we should be able to learn Torah. And you have to realize, it doesn't only mean when somebody learns beritzifut, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody learns only Torah for, without being distracted. It could also mean that somebody shows up constantly to class, or constantly learns beritzifut in the sense that he takes a book, he begins it, and he starts from one page, and every single day he learns another chapter, and slowly but surely beritzifut, he continues to progress in his learning. Any sort of, obviously, practically speaking, we're talking about learning straight without distraction in an amount of time, but it's also in a commitment to a certain study. If we're committed to a certain class with a certain rabbi, or we're committed to a certain individual learning that we have, or committed to a certain series online where we're listening to a class, if we're committed and we learn and we constantly stay true and focused on what we're trying to accomplish and learn, that gives us the ability to get an extra to'elet, an extra benefit from the Torah that we're learning and to internalize it into our hearts and souls and have that Torah burn and shine through us. B'siyata d'shmaya.
Amen.
So we learned a couple chapters in the Holy Rambam.
What is it specifically?
We weren't here the last, in general, about the concept that the reason why a person is punished, the reason why one is awarded for doing positive actions, and the reason why someone is punished for doing incorrect actions is because in the end of the day, we have full choice to what kind of life we want to lead. If we want to be righteous or if we want to be wicked. And one shouldn't ask, but the creator of the world knows what I'm going to do before I do it, because the creator of the world, the same way that he created a tree with a certain nature, he created a human with the ability to choose. He has bechira, and his ability to choose what kind of life he wants to live. And that applies also for somebody who's smart, or somebody who's generous, or somebody who's stingy, God forbid. It is up to us to choose what kind of actions, what kind of character traits we want to have also. How much we want to develop our minds, how much we want to develop our character traits to be generous and to give to others. It's up to us. Shemot Omar, Perek Hey, Halakha Hey. Maybe a person is going to say, "Kadosh Baruch Hu yodea kol ma sheyeh." God knows what's going to be. V'kodem sheyeh, and before a person makes his decisions, yeda shezeh yeh tzadik or rasha. God will know who's going to be righteous and who's going to be wicked. Or lo yeda. So, im yada, if the creator of if the world knows shu yeh tzadik, that this person is going to be righteous, yeh efshar shelo yeh tzadik, then it's impossible for him to not be a tzaddik, because God knows he's going to be a tzaddik. V'im tomar sheyada sheyeh tzaddik, if you want to say that it's his choice, but God knows that he's going to be a tzaddik, ve'efshar sheyeh rasha, but he still has the ability to be wicked. Harei lo yada davar al boryo. So, like, God forbid, then God doesn't know what he's really going to be, because if you're telling me God knows he's going to be a tzaddik, but he can still choose to be a rasha, so then what does that mean?
Okay, you're right.
So that can't be the case. The Rambam explains, Da, she'tshuvat she'ela zu, the answer to this question, aruka me'eretz midah v'rechava min hayam. It's longer than the measurement of the land and more wide than the ocean. V'kama ikarim gdolim, and there's huge rules, v'hararim ramim, and high mountains tluim ba, in the answer to this question. אבל צריך אתה לדע ולהבין בדבר זה שאני אומר. He says, but you need to know and understand what I'm about to say to you, says the Rambam. כבר ביארנו בפרק שני מהלכות יסודי התורה, שהקדוש ברוך הוא אינו יודע מדעה שהיא חוץ ממנו כבני אדם שהם ודעתם שניים. The Rambam says that we already learned the second chapter in Hilchot Yisodei Torah that God doesn't know מדעה שהיא חוץ ממנו on a thought which is outside of him, like people שהם ודעתם שניים. They and their thoughts are two, meaning they're separate. אלא הוא יתעלה שמו ודעתו אחד. God, his mind and him are one. Meaning you could think something, but you could be somewhere else, a human. You can sometimes feel something, but your mind will be doing something else.
Right.
With God, it's one. His thought, whatever this means.
He's totally present.
Yes, but it's very thin. It's hard to describe we're describing in a certain sense what God is. We can't describe what God is. What we could understand is how we are not God, because we can't understand God. It's beyond our comprehension. אלא הוא יתעלה שמו ודעתו אחד. שמו ודעתו אחד. His name and his mind is one. ואין דעתו של אדם יכולה להשיג דבר זה על בוריו. You know what I was just saying. And this is not something the human mind can comprehend. How God and his mind are one. And since they're one, כשם שאין כוח באדם להשיג ולמצוא אמיתת הבורא, just like a human can't find the true understanding of what God is. שנאמר, כי לא יראני אדם וחי, like the pasuk in Shemot says, nobody could see me and live, meaning nobody can understand what God is. שנאמר, כי לא יראני אדם וחי. כך, אין כוח באדם להשיג ולמצוא דעתו של בורא. Nobody could find the dot, the understanding of the Creator. Because if he could understand God's dot, then he would be able to understand his essence. And the essence of God is not possibly comprehensible. And this is something which it's not possible. That's what the Navi says. שהנביא אמר, כי לא מחשבותיי, מחשבותיכם. My thoughts are not your thoughts, said God. ולא דרככם, and your ways, דרכיי, are not my ways. Meaning, you cannot compare the human to God. What we can understand is only on the level of a human mind. It can never comprehend the mind of the one above, for lack of a better word, because the one above doesn't have a mind. But when we're discussing minds, we could discuss comprehensively speaking what the mind of God means for the sake of conversation, but not for the sake of essence. Since we can't understand God's thoughts and his understanding and his knowledge, so since we can't understand his knowledge, we cannot understand how God could know all of his creations and all of his creations and his doings in this world. Well, what was our question before? We said, if God knows what we're going to do, so how is it that God could know that we're going to be righteous? Mm-hmm. And then after the righteous, we're going to become wicked. So it shows that God doesn't know. That was our question. Mm-hmm. So the Rambam is first saying, we can't understand what that means God knows, because our understanding of knowledge is not the knowledge of God. Knowledge, God's essence and his knowledge are one. It's not like us where we have something separate between our minds and our knowledge. Mm-hmm. Aval, even though we know everything, we know that God knows everything that will be done with a man. I mean, he knows his creations, what they're going to be, what their futures are going to be. It still doesn't force a person, according to that knowledge, to go on a certain path. I mean, even if God knows you're going to be righteous, that doesn't mean that it takes away from your ability to choose righteousness or wickedness. God can know, but it doesn't interact with your ability to choose the path that you want to go on. Nida belo safek. The Rambam says, no, without any confusion. Shema'aseh adam biyad adam. Shema'aseh adam, the actions of humans, are in the hands of humans. Ve'en HaKadosh Baruch Hu moshcho, God doesn't pull a person, ve'lo gozer alav, and he doesn't decree on him, la'asot kach, to do in a certain way, to go in a certain way, ve'lo mipnei kabbalat hadat bilvad noda davar zeh. Because the knowledge of God is not going to force a person to make a specific decision. Ela birayot burot midivrei chachma, with many different proofs from divrei chachma. Umipnei zeh, and since this is the fact that a person has the ability to choose good or bad according to his will, ne'amar b'nevuah shedanin et ha'adam al ma'asav kefi ma'asav. That's why a person is judged by his actions, for his actions, by his actions, because it's up to him. Kefi ma'asav im tov im ra. We look at his actions, are they good or bad? Vizeh, and this concept that we're learning, that the decision is in a person's hand to choose in which way he wants. Hu ikar, this is the backbone, the ikar is like the center point. Shekol divrei nevuah tluyin ba. This is what all the prophecies are built on. The fact, because if a person didn't have if it wasn't up to a person to choose good or bad, you can never ridicule him on his improper actions. You can never reward him for his proper actions. It's not up to him. And that's what the Rambam has been drilling in this whole in this whole chapter that we've been learning, how important it is for a person to realize his ability to choose in what direction he wants to go in. How it's up to him, and he has the ability and the choice to pick the path that he wants to live and the path that he wants to go in his life. So what did we learn today, Yaakov? Maybe a person is going to say, if God knows I'm a tzaddik, God knows I'm righteous, so then what does it help for me to be righteous? It's not my decision. And if you're telling me I could choose to be righteous, but then God knows I'm going to be righteous, but then I could choose to be wicked, does that mean God doesn't know? The answer is we cannot understand God. And the Rambam says the answer to this question, it's called Yediyah v'bchira. Knowledge and choice is vaster than the length, space of the whole world and the width of the whole ocean. It's huge, indescribable. We cannot understand it. What do we understand? That God's knowledge is not our knowledge. So for us to ask, what does it mean for God to understand something that we're going to do if we could still do something otherwise? That's according to our comprehension of what knowledge is. But God is able to know, and He knows everything, and that doesn't affect our choice. We still have the ability to choose, bottom line, from everything that we're learning out of this whole, what would seem to be almost a little bit philosophical explanation that the Rambam is giving us over here, is to teach us, the bottom line is that Adam nidon lefi ma'asav kefi ma'asav. A person is judged based on his actions from his actions. We look at his actions. What did he do? It's up to you. Good or bad, it's up to you. Obviously, a person can't do anything without the help of God. A person needs to pray to have divine providence in his actions, what he wants to accomplish. It's not him and all about him. But in the bottom line, he's the one that chooses which path he wants to go in. Because if we don't have this, we have no prophecy, we have no reward, we have no world to come. Everything falls apart. This is the joker answer to anybody that wants to throw off any responsibility and belief of God. Is going to say that a righteous person doesn't choose if he's righteous. I was born with a certain character trait. I was born with a certain sexual attraction. Nothing can change. It's not my choice. It's nature. I was born angry. I can be angry. It's justified. I have an attraction to something which is incorrect, and it's not in my control. So therefore, I can continue, God forbid, to go after any messed up nature that I received. Says the Rambam, wrong. You have the ability to change your nature. You choose which direction you go to. There may be some places which are harder. We learned about in Rabbi Nachman, and we learned about in the Rambam. Also that somebody could change things which are hard nature. We learned about also in Chassidut that could show that specifically in the places where it's difficult for a person, that shows that he has a special job in that place. That's like an indicator that he needs to work on that character trait in that direction. But the most important thing is to understand in entirety that it's up to us. The decision is ours. We have the ability to choose and live the path that we want to live in. Understood? Another amazing thing that the Rambam said in one of the previous, earlier on in this chapter, was that when a person goes ahead and and I explained it a little bit, I touched on it before, that the same way that God created nature, He created a person with free will. Meaning we look at nature, we say, hey, but there's nature. You're right. But who created nature? You're right, there's nature. You're going to tell me, what's all this spirituality? Okay, you're right. Maybe you want to tell me that it doesn't mean that nature doesn't exist. It means God created nature. He could change nature. God that said that oil, it says, the same God that says that oil should light said vinegar should light. But we know vinegar is not flammable, and oil is. But the God that created oil to be flammable, He can now change the rules of nature and make vinegar light. Mm-hmm. There's something beyond. That's the source of it all. So there's nature, and then there's the essence of the nature itself, which is given by God. We have to just want to mention one thing, that there's many great tzaddikim that say that a person shouldn't study certain chapters in the Rambam, like Moreh Nevuchim. I forgot what it's called in English. A big portion of the Rambam, which many people learn. And there was some great tzaddikim like Rabbi Nachman and others who said that one should not learn those chapters which discuss the existence of God and all these different things. And there's many explanations to that, but some of the core explanation to why that is would be that sometimes with the questions, we don't, the questions, when we learn about a question, we end up remaining with the question. And that's a mistake because our minds are weak. We don't have the ability. It's not that, God forbid, what the Rambam wrote is not holy or accurate. And that's why we shouldn't learn it. God forbid. It's holy and accurate. But the reason why we don't learn it is because we have weak minds, and the Rambam is going into all these deep explanations of the existence of God. And for our minds, it could be more detrimental. We could be left with a question that we won't have an answer to. That's why sometimes when you tell kids too much information, you hurt them. Because a kid's mind can't, you start telling a kid, well, that's the reality of life. You start telling a kid about all these different difficult realities when he's 5. You're going to mess the kid up because he doesn't have the ability to understand the vast, understanding and depth of life. And the contrary to somebody who has great life experience and knowledge, you can sometimes tell him hard facts and he'll be able to accept it. So too, when we learn something like this in the Rambam, when we learn about the question of Yediyah B'Bchira, free choice, and then the Rambam gives us an answer telling us the answer is so expansive and so extensive we can never understand, but he gives us an answer. Sometimes we're like, hold on, but that doesn't really answer the question to me that you just asked. And the answer to that is we don't need to. It's not about the question. We need to extract over here from the Rambam what's the most important. That is that a human has Yediyah B'Bchira, and it's his choice to choose what kind of path he wants to go in, and according to that he's going to be rewarded, and according to that he's going to be judged based on his actions because he is in control. A person is judged according to his master. Cheskel, what did you want to say?
I think that sefer is called The Guide of the Perplexed, from the Rambam.
The Guide of the Perplexed, probably.
Yeah, and it's all about like philosophy.
Philosophy,
like
yes.
That, yeah.
It's greatest holiness in the world, but many of the tzaddikim said, and Rabbi Nachman speaks about this in length, and
if you're not in philosophy and stuff like that, it's
right.
why jump into that.
Exactly.
Like, if you are a philosophizer or a philosopher, and you need then that's like that safer is like good.
Potentially, it depends. I'm not sure who is correct to learn it, but obviously, it's the book Moreh Nevuchim is quoted by all the greatest tzaddikim. It's an amazing book with amazing it's holy and kadosh, but Rabbi Nachman says not to learn it practically in this generation, and many other tzaddikim say. So like I said, I gave an explanation, one of the explanations. There are other explanations, but practically speaking, we have to know that dwelling into understanding is not always the solution to what we're trying to accomplish.
Sure.
The way that the Rambam just explained to us himself over here, what our minds are not the same as our essence. Our minds can go to places, but our essence is something else. That's not the way God is. Meaning we are a creation. Yesh Boreh, there's a creator. Yesh Nivra, and there's a creation. Yesh Ma'atzil, there's a creator. Yesh Ne'etzal, and there's the one that's created. The Ne'etzal, the creation, cannot understand Hamatzil, the creator. Think about that for a second. You little, small human made out of flesh and blood are asking questions on the creator of the world, who created the skies and the heavens, the ocean and the fish, birds and bats, bears and lions alike.
Matter, energy,
everything in the world.
Science,
You are a small little human creation. With all due respect to you, my friend, you're amazing. But you cannot ask in your little small mind to understand something which is unconceivable by the human mind. So stay in your place, know your limitations, study Torah and study light of God with a place of knowing your place from a place of being humble, and from there you can continue to grow. And the Rambam says, "Tachlit ha'yediyah shelo neda." The greatest level of knowledge is to know that you don't know. Meaning, when you come to a place where you know your limitations, you're opening up yourself to more knowledge. If anybody learns the secrets of Torah, they discover that the more that somebody is more humble, the more that they're more subdue themselves to God, that opens up their mind to accept more Torah. And when you have a vessel, and you expand that vessel, then you can fill that vessel more. The more that a person belittles himself. He's creating a bigger vessel for him to accept Ein Sof, endless light. What'd you say?
Moshe Rabbeinu, the most humblest of them all. That's why he received the Torah.
Okay. B'siyata Dishmaya. We'll learn a little bit Rabbi Nachman. שיחתו הקדושה, שיחה סמך, של רבנו ז"ל, בעת שאירע מעשה בקהילת קודש ברסלב שנזרקה ילדה אחת בבית שחפרו ועשו בו בניינים חדשים, גם כמה נפשות היו בסכנה גדולה, אז שמעתי מפיו הקדוש עניין זה. Rabbi Nachman said this discourse, in the context, there was a story that happened in the town of Breslov, that there was a girl that got hurt in a house which they were digging in because they were building new buildings, and there was a young girl that got hurt. And many people got hurt in these, maybe you want to call it, excavations. They were building new buildings. So Rabbi Nachman said, when it comes to building, he said, I looked into this in great depth. Anybody that's dealing with building buildings and building walls, nobody can leave clean. Nobody can get through this without issues. Even a non-Jew. It's nothing to do with being Jewish. Somebody that is either building buildings or a home or walls. It's hard to get through this easily. But nevertheless, people need to deal with this all the time. That's the maintenance of the world. It's impossible to be without this. Therefore, it has to be that people will be attracted to building and to, because it's necessary for creation. And within this, there's many different details. Either way, it's very hard to come out clean from building. The Gemara in Yavam says, when a person deals with building, he becomes unfortunate. It could also mean he becomes poor. It also means he's in danger. במדרש מבואר בפירוש על פסוק ויבן עזרא מסכנות לפרעה, when it says in the pasuk in Shmot that they were building lands of מסכנות, אחד אמר שממסכנות, one said it makes them unfortunate, שממסכנות את בעליהם, ואחד אמר שמסכנות את בעליהם. So one says they make their husbands unfortunate, and some says, there's another פירוש over there, that they make their husbands in danger. So you see either way that when one deals with building, it's not an easy tchum, it's not an easy business to be involved in, and anybody that gets involved in that business, it's hard to be clean, and there's many issues that come along with it. Rabbi Nachman says the most important thing is the foundation. A person has to know when to put the foundation, and what kind of tree to use when they put the foundation. There are different kinds of trees which are not appropriate to be the foundation. But it's impossible to know. So I'm not exactly sure what Rabbi Nachman wants us to understand from this, to take out practically. It's a long discourse, so we're going to continue again Bezrat Hashem tomorrow. But one thing that's clear here is Rabbi Nachman is explaining that one that deals with building, whatever has to do with building houses or building walls, it's something which is necessary for society, but nevertheless it comes along even with either with poverty or with becoming unfortunate. And people have to know, when you go into building a home, when you go into building a development, it's not an easy forte, it's not an easy business to be involved in, it's not an easy process to be involved in, and it comes along with issues. Like it says in the Gemara, Misha osek bebinyan mitmasken. So first of all, if the person knows that, he comes in with a different attitude, knowing when it comes to building, it's never going to go straight. It's never going to be smooth like you want it to be. You have to first know that there's things which are greater, and you have to know how to put in the foundation of the building. You have to know how to build property, and that's hard to know, and you have to know what kind of materials to use. There's a lot of details, but it's not simple. Meaning you can do many things in life, that you can be successful and do it right and productively. When it comes to building, there's something beyond, which has so many details, which is not simple. You can't just wing it. So first of all, you have to know that, and hopefully, as we elaborate more, we'll understand more. To sum up, Be'ezrat Hashem, this amazing class that we had today, we're so happy to have you guys back, B'siyata Deshmaya. But Be'ezrat Hashem, we should be zochet to deal less with work and to deal more with Torah, and to be humble, to know that if we make time to learn Torah and we toil in the Torah, then God will reward us with so much amazing blessing in the little amount of work that we're going to do, and that work will be blessed, and everything that we'll do and the people around us will have what they need. Be'ezrat Hashem, b'siyata d'shmaya. And we should be able to learn, like we learned today from the Yanuka, to learn without distraction. The more that we learn, we'll be more potent, and we should be able to understand that we have the choice to choose in the path and the direction that we want, like we learned in the Rambam, and to know how to look at the world with the right comprehension of knowing that in the end of the day, it's up to us, and it's our choice to choose in which direction. According to our actions, we're going to be judged, Be'ezrat Hashem, and to know that when we're ever dealing with building, it's not simple. Be'ezrat Hashem will elaborate more on this teaching from Rabbi Nachman. Everybody should have an amazing day with all the blessings and success. I look forward to seeing you all soon, and thank you so much for joining. An amazing, amazing day.